It's Wednesday, October the 6th. Lake level's still about the same as it's been the last month. It's 9:15 and a quarter, which 9:15 is normal winter pool. Hadn't been very much water flow. I looked and they just now cranked several generators going. As far as the water temperature, it's been raining all day, so hopefully that's cooled the water down a little bit. But it's been, higher 70, 76, 78 degrees. You'll find some 80-degree water. The next month or so, there's a ton of tournaments, coming to the lake. And this time of year can be some of the toughest fishing on Table Rock. And not so much just here, but all the area lakes. The fish get in a transition, thermocline starts to break up. But, myself, I actually really like the tough tournaments. I've done really well this time of year. On the flip side of that, I've had some really bad ones as well. But, it's kind of one of the deals you just got to grind it out. And I think this next weekend we got the Champion Charger Owners Tournament. And it'll have a couple hundred boats. Then the weekend after that, I think there's a Bass Federation, then an OMTT Championship. Each one of them will have way over 100 boats. So, lake's going to get a lot of pressure. Fish are going to see a lot of different lures. But, traditionally, they've had the Champion Owners Tournament here for like 20 years. And for the most part, the weights, I'm going to say it's usually between 22 to 27 pounds a day, or not a day, but total weight for 2 days. So it seems like if you can average 12, 13 pounds a day, you're going to be right there, which that doesn't seem like it should be that hard to do, but sometimes it is. A lot of times you'll see somebody have a, 17, 18 pound bag one day. Problem is things change so much day to day this time of year is backing it up. And there's going to be fish caught. Some are going to be so shallow their backs are going to be almost out of the water, and some are going to be down as deep as 50 foot. So for the people that are coming here fishing them, those tournaments that don't fish here a lot, if I would fish to your strengths, meaning that if you're predominantly a shallow water fisherman, I would key on shallow water fish. And with the lake the way it is right now, the lake's not near as clear as what it has been in years past. Normally, if you're going to fish shallow, you got to go to one of the river arms, but that's not the case. This year there's been a lot of fish shallow because there's been some stained water, throughout the lake and the mid-lake. And with this recent rain that we've got, I don't think it rained hard enough to, have a bunch of water running into the lake real hard, but it will stain up some of the creeks a little bit. And the creeks throughout the lake, not just mainly the river arms, but the creeks down lake and the middle part of the lake, the backs of them are also going to have some stain into them. So, if a guy likes to fish deep, try to key on the deep, see what you can get going. That's kind of the philosophy I would have. Now, I fish both deep and shallow, so it kind of gives me twice as many things to check. But, right now, if I'm fishing shallow, I'm going to fish top waters, spinnerbait, crankbait, and a jig. Now, it depends where I'm at. If I'm in the river arms, I'm on flats where there's a lot of shallow wood. With the lake level like it is, there's not a whole lot of shoreline cover that's got much more than a couple feet of water. But there is some, but there seems to be more out on the flats, in the upper river arms. And I'm going to throw a lot of square bills, and I'm going to mix it up. I say I throw a lot of different kinds. I mainly throw a Spro, and I'll throw a Strike King 1.5 and 2.5. Depending on how deep I'm fishing, I'll usually have one of each tied on. If the wood's in 5 or 6 feet of water, I'll usually throw like a 2.5. If it's 1 or 2 feet, I'll throw like a Russ Lane Fat Papa 55 or 1.5, something I can get through the wood and around the brush without dredging up the leaves on the bottom. Now, on them same pieces of structure, I'm going to fish a spinnerbait, and I'll throw the same spinnerbaits whether I'm fishing them shallow or if I'm fishing out there in the main lake. War Eagle mouse color is always really good. I always throw, usually always a tandem willow, one nickel, one gold. Another good color here is a blue herring. And this is called a hot mouse. And I'll mix it up between a 3/8 and a half. A lot of times I like the Screaming Eagle because it's a little heavier bait with smaller blades. In them same pieces of wood structure, I'm going to throw a jig as well. And, you know, I'm going to have quite a few rods rigged up, you know, 6 or 8 rods. But I'm going to have a 5-fish ultimate finesse jig. A lot of, you know, green pumpkins, PBJ. This one is a magic craw. And I'm going to use a small trailer like a critter craw. This is a baby raised craw. Or I'm going to throw ultimate cover jig, which has got a little stiffer weed guard, a little bit bigger hook, and it's got a full skirt, and I like it in real thick brush. The finesse jig I like on a little bit cleaner banks, on rock banks, or in around docks, behind docks. I like the finesse jig a little bit better. Now, if I'm fishing up there real shallow, like I say, that shallow wood, I'll throw a mixture. You know, I said the crankbait, spinnerbait. I also throw a top water over the top of them. And if all else fails, I'll, you know, pick them apart flipping. But it seems like a lot of times, or here lately, I've been getting more bites on a reaction bait, whether it be the spinnerbait or the crankbait. And whether I'm fishing deep or shallow, shad is really the key right now. I know I keep saying that in the previous fishing reports, but to me the fall time is all about the shad. Whether they're, you know, it's just wherever you find them, whether it's in the creeks, halfway back, all the way back at the mouths, whether I'm fishing deep or shallow. Now if I'm fishing deeper, you know, right now I'm fishing a lot of what we call gravel roll-offs, be main lake, main river points, like at the entrance of a creek channel. Now as the thermocline, you know, starts to break up, which it's doing now, a lot of them fish that were out there deep, some are going to go shallower and some are going to go deeper. The thermocline was around 35 feet, so a lot of those fish are going to migrate a little bit shallower. Some of them are going to go 45 to 50. So I'm going to start on them gravel points and roll-offs where I feel like them fish are migrating into the creeks. And you know, earlier this week, the depth for me seemed to be about 18 to 25 feet, and I was catching them on a jig out there. Now, I say, you know, a jig, it doesn't have to be a jig. It can be a Carolina rig, a shaky head, football jig, just whatever you've got the most confidence in. What I'm normally throwing, if the bottom is pretty clean, I'm throwing a 5/8 football jig, a lot of the same colors, you know, PBJ, Okeechobee craw, green pumpkin purple, and I'll use like a Zoom speed craw as a trailer. If I'm throwing a little smaller bait, I'll throw a baby rage craw. If a bigger bait, I'll throw a big rage craw. Also, I'll throw a ultimate shaky head. It's got a 6/0 hook in it, and I'll fish like a Magnum Zoom Magnum trick worm or a Magnum finesse worm. And I hadn't been throwing a Carolina rig very much, but you can throw, you know, Carolina rig out there with maybe even a little French fry or a lizard. But I would key from that, the key depth I would try is, you know, from that 15 to 30. And like I mentioned earlier, the places I've been getting bit, there's shad present. The shad may not be down there as deep as I'm fishing, but they're up there suspended in that 15 to 20 feet. So, you know, I might hit 2, 3, maybe even 4 spots that all lay the same. I'll find one that's got bait, and I am finding the fish, you know, kind of grouped up. I'm getting a mixture of Kentuckys and largemouths. Now, down lake, a lot of that same area where the water, where there's predominantly more smallmouths, might try a little Ned rig or a shaky head. A lot of times, especially early, them Ned rig fish should be up there, you know, 10 foot or less. Just depends on the day. Normally, as the sun gets out, you'll start after backing out a little bit deeper. You can cover the bank with, you know, whopper plopper, just burning up miles of shoreline. And the same thing with that. You'll notice your bites are going to be around wherever you find shore minnows or shad. There's also been, I'm talking about a lot of different bites that's going on, but none of them I feel are real strong, but they will work. It's like a shallow dock bite. That's where I'm throwing a finesse jig, and had I say a fairly decent shallow dock bite in the mid-lake from Kimberling City to Baxter to Indian Point. But in order to catch 5 to 7 keepers, it might take me 6 or 7 hours in 50 docks. But the depth I seem to be, is working for me is 15 foot or less. It's that 5 to 15, like the first couple stalls out or in behind the walkways. I'm not finding very many fish, but they are quality fish. It's like I say, the fall, you just got to really mix it up, cover a lot of different patterns. Been able to catch some fish on the spinner baits and even topwater throughout the day. I don't need cloudy days. A little wind doesn't hurt. It's the same type areas you would fish a jerkbait in the springtime, where the fish are kind of staging, coming out of deeper water to go back in there to spawn. They're kind of doing the same thing. They're coming out of that deeper water. They're going to stage on some of them secondary points and around the pole timber in the cedar trees. And what I like to do when I find them trees in that 15, 20 foot depth is take the spinnerbait, burn it through the top of it, pause it just as it gets in the top of the tree, or work a topwater through it. Like a walking bait will work good, like a Zara spook, sexy dog, or even a wake bait like a Berkeley surge shad. The old cotton cordell redfin will work. Any of those type baits just work through the treetops. But there again, you're going to have to cover a bunch of them, but there's a good chance you can catch a good quality fish out of them. But like I say, just keep an open mind, go fishing, and until next week, good luck, good fishing.